The recycled air aboard the Starcross tasted stale as Rook Winters made his final check of the derelict station's coordinates. 20 years of salvage work had taught him to trust his gut, and right now every instinct screamed that something was wrong about this job. The research station shouldn't have been here, floating silent in the void between Proxima Centauri's outer planets. Readings confirmed, Captain, the ship's AI announced in its characteristic monotone. Station designation, Helios 7. No active power signatures detected. No distress beacons. No signs of recent activity. Rook ran his fingers through his graying beard, studying the massive structure through the viewport. Show me the contract details again, Nova. The AI projected the documentation, an anonymous tip about valuable research materials, coordinates, and a promise of payment that made his eyes water. Too good to be true, probably. But in this economy, beggars couldn't be choosers. Initiating docking sequence, Nova announced. The Starcross shuddered as it aligned with the station's primary airlock. Rook checked his environment suit's seals one last time before grabbing his toolkit and plasma torch. The airlock cycled with a hiss, revealing the station's dark interior. Rook's helmet lights cut through the darkness, illuminating corridors thick with dust. His boots left clear prints in the gray powder coating the floor, the first in what looked like decades. Nova, maintain continuous scan for any anomalies, he ordered, moving deeper into the facility. I don't want any surprises. The station's layout was typical for its era, research labs branching off a central corridor, crew quarters, and storage areas. But something felt off. The abandonment seemed too clean, too deliberate. No signs of struggle or emergency evacuation. Just emptiness. Until he heard it. A sound so faint he almost convinced himself he'd imagined it, singing. The melody was haunting, unlike anything he'd ever heard. It seemed to resonate not just in his ears but in his bones. Rook found himself moving toward it before he'd made a conscious decision to investigate. The song led him to a sealed door marked, Restricted Access, Project Starfall. His scanner showed active power readings behind it, the first signs of life he'd found. The door's security system was sophisticated but old. It took him 15 minutes to bypass it. The sight inside stopped him cold. The room was a laboratory, but unlike any he'd seen before. Strange equipment lined the walls, and at its center stood a cylindrical chamber filled with swirling, iridescent mist. Within the mist floated a figure. She was humanoid but clearly alien, her skin a deep purple that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Intricate patterns of bioluminescence pulsed across her body in time with what he now realized was her song. Her eyes were closed, but tears of silvery liquid rolled down her cheeks. Nova, Rook whispered, are you seeing this? Affirmative, Captain. Subject appears to be contained within a quantum stasis field. Biological readings indicate severe stress but stable life signs. Rook approached the chamber slowly. The alien's eyes snapped open at his movement, solid white orbs that somehow still managed to convey desperate hope. Her song stopped. Please, she said, her voice carrying perfectly through the chamber's barrier. Please help me. They left me here to die. Rook had spent his life staying out of trouble, taking only the jobs that wouldn't attract attention. But looking into those eyes, he knew he couldn't walk away. Who are you? He asked. Who did this to you? My name is Lyra, she replied, her voice trembling. Was a researcher, studying humanity's potential. Until they discovered what I learned. What humanity could become. They couldn't let the truth be known. Warning klaxons suddenly blared throughout the station. Nova's voice cut through the noise, Captain, multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Military configurations. They're charging weapons. Rook's heart hammered in his chest as he looked at the alien, at Lyra. She pressed her hands against the chamber's barrier, leaving trails of silvery light. They're coming to make sure their secret stays buried, she whispered. Leave now, while you can. Save yourself. Rook's fingers were already dancing across the chamber's control panel. Nova, begin emergency undocking procedures. And dig up everything you can find about Project Starfall. The odds of successful escape are. Never tell me the odds, Rook growled, bypassing the chamber's safety protocols. Just be ready to run. As the stasis field began to dissolve, Lyra's eyes met his. Why? She asked. Why help me? Rook managed a grim smile. Because whatever truth they're trying to hide by keeping you here. I think it's time the galaxy learned it. The chamber's barrier vanished with a hiss of escaping energy. Lyra collapsed forward, her weakened legs giving out. Rook caught her, surprised by how light she felt. Nova's voice took on an urgent tone, multiple boarding craft detected. Hostile forces will breach the station in approximately 3 minutes. Rook lifted Lyra into his arms. Then we better not be here in 2. Hold on tight, Starlight. This is going to get interesting. The Starcross's engines screamed in protest as Rook pushed them well beyond their rated capacity. Behind them, 3 sleek military vessels carved burning lines through space, their weapon systems painting targeting locks across his ship's hull. Lyra sat hunched in the co-pilot's seat, her luminescent patterns flickering weakly. Your ship, she whispered, it has a quantum drive. That's generous, Rook replied, executing a desperate evasive maneuver as energy beams sliced through their previous position. More like a salvaged prototype I never got working right. Nova, status on those pursuit ships. Vessels identified as belonging to the Hegemony Special Operations Division. They are maintaining pursuit and charging primary weapons. Captain, they're using experimental quantum disruptors. Rook cursed under his breath. The Hegemony was humanity's largest governmental body, and their Special Ops Division wasn't known for leaving witnesses. They really don't want us sharing whatever we found. Lyra's fingers traced glowing patterns in the air, leaving trails of light that formed complex equations. Your drive. I can modify it. Make it work properly. But you'll have to trust me. A massive explosion rocked the ship as one of the pursuing vessels scored a glancing hit. Warning lights flooded the cockpit. Hull breach in Cargo Section 3, Nova reported. Emergency containment holding. Captain, we cannot sustain another direct hit. Rook glanced at Lyra. 20 years of survival instincts screamed at him not to let an unknown alien mess with his ship's most critical systems. But those same instincts had also kept him alive by knowing when to take calculated risks. Nova, give her access to the drive controls. But maintain emergency shutdown capabilities. Lyra's hands moved with surprising speed across the ship's interface. The patterns of light across her skin pulsed faster, seeming to sync with the ship's systems. Your species, she said as she worked, you don't understand what you truly are. What you could become. The Hegemony found out when they captured me. They extracted information. But they feared what it meant. Another blast rocked the ship. Through the viewport, Rook watched a piece of his hull spiral away into the void. Less cryptic exposition, more miracle drive fixing. There. Lyra's patterns flared brilliantly. The ship's engines changed tone, humming with a resonance that made Rook's teeth itch. Your quantum drive wasn't broken. It was incomplete. Like humanity itself. The pursuing ships launched a coordinated volley of quantum disruptors. Rook's hands flew across the controls, but he knew they couldn't evade them all. Nova, emergency jump. Any coordinates? Jump calculations impossible at this range, Nova replied. Collision risk too high. Lyra pressed her hand against the ship's console. Her bioluminescence synchronized perfectly with the ship's power readings. Trust me, she whispered. Rook met her solid white eyes and nodded. Nova, execute jump on her mark. The quantum disruptors were seconds from impact when Lyra's patterns erupted in blinding light. The Starcross's drive engaged with a sound Rook had never heard before, like reality itself was being gently pushed aside rather than torn open. The destructive energies of the quantum disruptors passed through the space where they had been as the Starcross slipped between the dimensions in a way that defied conventional physics. Through the viewport, space itself seemed to fold, creating impossible geometries that hurt Rook's eyes to look at. When reality reasserted itself, they were somewhere else entirely. A massive gas giant loomed before them, its swirling storms illuminated by a distant binary star system Rook didn't recognize. "Where are we?" he asked, checking their navigational systems. "Nova. Location unknown," the AI reported. "No matching stellar configurations in database. We appear to be beyond mapped space." Lyra slumped in her chair, her patterns dim but stable. "Somewhere safe. For now. They'll find us eventually, but we have time." "Time for what?" "For me to show you what I discovered about humanity. About your potential." She turned those impossible eyes toward him. "And why the hegemony would rather kill us both than let that knowledge spread." Rook ran a diagnostic on their damaged systems as he considered their situation. "You know, I usually like to know what I'm dying for before I get into these situations." A sound like chiming crystals emerged from Lyra, her species' version of laughter, he realized. "You're kind," she said, "you always hide your greatest strengths behind humor. Even now, facing the unknown, you joke. It's part of why they fear you so much. The hegemony fears bad comedy. They fear what humanity is becoming. What you're evolving into." Her patterns shifted, forming complex symbols. "Your species is on the cusp of a transformation. One that would reshape the galaxy. I can prove it. But first." She gestured at the ship's damaged systems. "We need to make repairs. And I need to show you something that will change how you see everything, including yourself." Nova's sensors suddenly pinged a warning. "Unknown energy signature detected within the gas giant's atmosphere. It appears to be artificial." Rook looked from the massive planet to his mysterious passenger. "Let me guess, that's where we're heading." Lyra nodded. "There are others who know what I know. Who want to help humanity embrace its destiny rather than fear it. They've been waiting. Watching. Preparing. And they live in a gas giant?" "No," she replied, her patterns forming a map through the planet's layers. "They live in what's hidden inside it. In a place that holds secrets about humanity's true origins, and its future." The Starcross's damaged systems groaned as Rook adjusted their course toward the energy signature. He had a feeling that his life of staying out of trouble was well and truly over. But looking at the mysteries swirling in both the gas giant before them and the alien beside him, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. "Well then, Starlight," he said, plotting their descent, "let's go see what destiny has in store for us." The gas giant's atmosphere roiled around the Starcross like angry waves of liquid light. Bands of colorful storms larger than Earth whirled beneath them, while above, the binary stars painted everything in shifting shades of amber and blue. "Hull integrity at 63%, Nova announced. These atmospheric pressures exceed design specifications." "Story of my life," Rook muttered, his hands dancing across the controls. "Lyra, please tell me we're not about to crush ourselves chasing shadows." The alien researcher touched the console again, her bioluminescent patterns synchronizing with the ship's sensors. "The facility is hidden within a stable pocket of calm atmosphere. The storms protect it from detection. We're almost." Warning klaxons blared as something massive emerged from the clouds below. At first, Rook thought it was another storm formation, but as the gases parted, he saw gleaming metal and geometric patterns that could only be artificial. "By the void," he breathed. "That's no facility. That's a city." Suspended within the gas giant's atmosphere was a vast structure that defied conventional engineering. Crystalline spires rose from circular platforms that should have been impossible at these pressures. Energy fields pulsed between the towers, somehow holding back the crushing weight of the atmosphere. The archive, Lyra said softly. One of the last refuges of the Precursor Initiative. Before Rook could ask what that meant, Nova's sensors screamed a warning. Multiple ships detected entering the atmosphere. Hegemony signatures confirmed. How? Rook demanded, already adjusting course to use the storms as cover. We jumped beyond mapped space. Lyra's patterns flickered with concern. They must have planted a quantum trace on us during the battle. I should have detected it. Less guilt, more survival planning, Rook said, pushing the damaged ship into a desperate dive. Nova, what are we dealing with? 5 pursuit vessels, heavily armed. They appear to be deploying atmospheric fighters. Captain, these are Hegemony Black Operations ships. They're not authorized to exist. A bitter laugh escaped Rook's throat. Fantastic. The people trying to kill us don't officially exist. Any other good news? The Archive's defense systems suddenly activated. Energy beams lanced out from the crystalline towers, forcing the Hegemony ships to break formation. A voice echoed through their communications system, speaking in a language Rook had never heard before. Lyra responded in the same tongue, her patterns pulsing urgently. The voice replied, and a section of the energy field protecting the archive shifted, creating an opening. They're giving us cover to land, Lyra explained. But we have to hurry. The archive's weapons were designed for defense, not combat. They can't hold off a dedicated military force for long. Rook guided the Starcross through the opening, trying not to think about the crushing pressures being held back by seemingly nothing more than light and mathematics. The landing bay they entered was vast, filled with ships of designs he'd never seen before. As they sat down, he finally asked the question that had been burning in his mind. These precursors, they're the ones who discovered humanity's potential? Lyra shook her head, her patterns forming complex shapes. No, Rook. They didn't discover it. They created it. The ship shuddered as its landing gear engaged. Through the viewport, Rook could see figures approaching, some humanoid, others decidedly not. All of them seemed to shimmer with the same kind of bioluminescence as Lyra. When humanity first reached for the stars, Lyra continued, they thought they were taking their first steps into the cosmos. They didn't realize they were coming home. An explosion rocked the archive as the Hegemony forces began their assault. Alarms blared in languages both familiar and alien. The figures outside gestured urgently for them to disembark. The Hegemony found fragments of the truth in my research, Lyra said as they prepared to leave the ship. About humanity's engineered potential. About the quantum modifications written into your very DNA. They feared what it meant, that humanity wasn't just reaching for godhood. They were returning to it. Rook checked his weapon's charge, trying to process what she was saying. And these precursors? What do they want? To finish what they started. To help humanity complete its transformation. She placed a hand on his arm, her pattern synchronizing with his heartbeat. But first, we have to survive what's coming. The Hegemony would rather destroy this place, and everything in it, than let humanity learn the truth. Another explosion shook the archive. Through the landing bay's energy field, Rook could see Hegemony ships deploying troops. The next few hours would determine not just their fate, but potentially the future of humanity itself. Well, he said, managing a grim smile, I always wanted to be part of something bigger than myself. Though I was thinking more along the lines of opening a restaurant. Lyra's crystalline laugh mixed with the sound of weapons fire as they prepared to make their stand. The truth about humanity's destiny waited somewhere in the archive's ancient halls. They just had to stay alive long enough to find it. The archive's corridors seemed to pulse with living light as Rook and Lyra ran, following their luminescent guides deeper into the ancient structure. Behind them, the sounds of battle echoed through the crystalline halls, hegemony forces clashing with the archive's defenders. "Through here," called one of their guides, a tall being whose shifting patterns reminded Rook of flowing water. The core chamber remained secure. They passed through a doorway that seemed to fold space itself, emerging into a vast spherical room. The walls were covered in swirling mathematical equations that moved and evolved like living things. At the chamber's center floated a crystalline structure that defied description, part computer, part organism, pure energy given form. "The Nexus," Lyra breathed, her patterns synchronizing with the flowing equations. "The sum of all precursor knowledge." "Incoming forces detected in sectors 7 through 12, announced a voice that seemed to come from the chamber itself. Core containment protocols engaged. The water pattern being, who had introduced himself as Meridian, turned to them. "We don't have much time. The hegemony brought enough firepower to breach even our deepest defenses. They mean to destroy everything here." "Then show me," Rook said, stepping forward. "Show me what was worth starting a war over." Lyra and Meridian exchanged glances. The crystalline structure pulsed, and suddenly the chamber filled with holographic displays, images of human DNA, but like none Rook had ever seen. The double helix structure was interwoven with patterns of energy that shouldn't have been possible. "Your species was not born," Meridian explained. "You were designed. Created to be the next stage in cosmic evolution." The displays shifted, showing human history, but from an entirely new perspective. Ancient megalithic structures, mysterious artifacts, unexplained leaps in technology, all of them synchronized with periodic bursts of stellar radiation that had subtly altered human genetics. "The precursors seeded thousands of worlds with life," Lyra continued. "But humanity was different. Special. You were encoded with the potential to transcend physical form itself. To become beings of pure quantum consciousness." Rook watched as the displays showed future projections, humans evolving into beings of light and energy, capable of reshaping reality itself. But something went wrong, he guessed. Meridian nodded. "The Great Collapse. The event that forced the precursors to retreat from the galaxy. The project was left unfinished. Humanity developed naturally, unaware of their true potential. Until now." An explosion rocked the chamber. The equations on the walls flickered. Through their neural link to the archive systems, they could feel the hegemony forces getting closer. "The hegemony found fragments of this knowledge in classified archives," Lyra explained. "They realized that humanity was approaching a critical point in their designed evolution. Within a few generations, the changes would begin manifesting naturally. They feared losing control. So they created a secret division," Rook said, pieces falling into place. "To find and destroy any evidence of humanity's true nature. To keep us contained." Another explosion, closer this time. The chamber's defenses hummed as they reinforced themselves. "What they don't understand," Meridian said, "is that it's already too late. The process has begun. In you. In all humans. Even now, your quantum consciousness is awakening." As if in response to his words, Rook felt something shift inside his mind. The mathematical equations on the walls suddenly seemed to make sense. He could feel the energy fields around them, the quantum potential flowing through reality itself. "That's why they're really here," Lyra said softly. "Not just to destroy the evidence. They want to release a quantum virus, one designed to rewrite human DNA, to strip away the precursor modifications permanently." The chamber shook again. Warning signals flashed across the walls. The hegemony forces had reached the outer defenses of the core chamber. "How do we stop them?" Rook asked, his newfound awareness humming with possibilities. "We don't," Meridian replied. "You do. The Nexus contains a quantum key," one that can unlock the dormant potential in all of humanity. But using it, the process cannot be reversed. And it must be activated by one who carries the full potential. Lyra's patterns swirled with concern. It would mean changing everything, Rook. Human civilization as you know it would transform overnight. There's no going back. Another explosion rocked the chamber. Through the archive systems, they could see hegemony forces preparing to deploy their virus. Millions of years of careful engineering, humanity's cosmic destiny, about to be erased forever. Rook looked at the Nexus, feeling its power calling to him. Sometimes, he said, reaching for the quantum key, moving forward is the only way to survive. The chamber blazed with light as destiny hung in the balance. The quantum key pulsed in Rook's hands like a living star, its energy resonating with something deep within his DNA. The core chamber shook with increasing violence as hegemony forces breached the outer defenses. Last containment barrier failing, the archive's voice announced. Hostile forces will reach the chamber in 3 minutes. If you're going to do this, Lyra said, her patterns flickering anxiously, it has to be now. But Rook, activating the key will change you. Change everyone. Some may not survive the transformation. Rook felt the weight of billions of lives in his hands. And if we don't? The virus will ensure humanity remains forever trapped in physical form, Meridian answered. Your species will never achieve what you were meant to become. Through his growing quantum awareness, Rook could sense the hegemony troops advancing. Could feel the viral payload they carried, an algorithmic abomination designed to sever humanity's connection to the quantum realm forever. They're coming. One of the defenders called out. Energy weapons fired, filling the corridors with deadly light. Rook closed his eyes, feeling the key's power flowing through him. In that moment, he could sense every human in existence, billions of lights in the cosmic dark, each carrying the same dormant potential. The same destiny. I'm sorry, he whispered to them all. And you're welcome. He activated the key. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, like a wave of living light, the quantum awakening began. The key's energy surged through Rook's transformed consciousness, using him as a conduit to reach every human in the galaxy. The hegemony forces burst into the chamber just as the wave reached them. Their weapons fell from suddenly translucent hands as their bodies began to transform. Some screamed in terror, others in ecstasy as they felt themselves awakening to what they truly were. Rook watched in awe as his own physical form became optional, his consciousness expanding to encompass dimensions he'd never known existed. Around him, the archive's crystalline walls seemed to sing with triumph as billions of years of patient engineering finally bore fruit. It's beautiful, Lyra whispered, her pattern synchronizing with Rook's new form. You're becoming what you always were. Across the galaxy, humanity was changing. Ships fell silent as their crews transformed. Planets glowed with the light of awakening consciousness. The quantum realm that had always existed alongside physical reality became visible to newly opened eyes. But not everyone survived the change. Some minds couldn't handle the transformation, burning out like overloaded circuits. Others refused it, their terror and resistance causing their consciousness to fragment. The price of evolution was being paid in full. Through it all, Rook maintained his sense of self, becoming a bridge between what humanity had been and what it was becoming. The hegemony's virus, designed to work on physical DNA, was useless against beings who now existed primarily as quantum consciousness. Hours passed as the transformation swept the galaxy. When it was done, humanity had become something new, beings of light and thought who could shape reality itself, yet chose to maintain physical form when they wished. The hegemony's power structure, based on controlling physical resources, crumbled overnight. What happens now? Rook asked, his voice resonating across multiple dimensions. Meridian's patterns formed a complex smile. Now. Now you truly begin. The precursors created you to be their successors, to become the guardians and caretakers of this galaxy. The transformation was just the first step. Lyra moved closer to Rook, her consciousness harmonizing with his new form. And we'll be here to guide you. To help humanity understand its new place in the cosmos. Through his expanded awareness, Rook could feel the others, billions of transformed humans reaching out with their new senses, discovering their abilities, forming a vast network of quantum consciousness while maintaining their individuality. There would be challenges ahead. Not everyone would use their new powers wisely. The transformation had created as many questions as it had answered. But looking out at the gas giant's swirling storms, now visible to him on levels he'd never imagined possible, Rook felt hope. Humanity had been given wings, and though some would fall, others would soar. Well, he said, his consciousness brushing against the fabric of space-time itself, I still might open that restaurant. Just, with a slightly different menu now. Lyra's crystalline laugh echoed through multiple dimensions as the binary stars rose over the archive, illuminating a galaxy where humanity had finally come home to itself. The story of their physical evolution had ended. The story of what they would become was just beginning. In the core chamber, the Nexus continued its ancient calculations, preparing for the next phase of its grand design. And somewhere in the quantum realm, the precursors watched with satisfaction as their children finally took their first true steps into the cosmic dawn.